Welcome to Video Game Movement Study. This video is going to be a little bit different from my previous videos. Today, I'll be teaching you all the tips and tricks on how to speedrun Demon Turf Neon Splash. So just as a heads up, I'm not going to be going over the basic movement of this game since I've already kind of talked about it in my previous video. If you would like to stay up to date on that sort of movement, go ahead and go back and watch the video. All the changes that were made to the movement in this version of the game are all speedrun centric. This version is overall better quality of life for speedrunning, so without further ado, let's get right into the game's tech. Now the first thing that you'll notice is that the turf wheel is gone. All your abilities are now placed onto your normal buttons, which creates a much faster and smoother experience while playing this game. Instead of having just a regular double jump, they decided to make the change to give you a triple jump now. This one little change adds an insane amount to the verticality in this game. The developers 100% knew what they were doing in this update. Next, we have the rollout ability. This ability didn't receive many changes from the previous version of the game, but you can use it to cover long horizontal distances just like the last one. But it does have some tricks that will help you cover large distances. For example, let's take a look at the rollout jump. As a beginner, you might roll out then delay your second jump like so. This is good for when you first start, but there are better ways that can help you travel further. The surefire way of maximizing your distance is to jump immediately right after you do your first jump off the ledge. And just like that, you see how much farther you can go. Now let's do it again, but this time in slow-mo. So once you reach this section, remember, jump immediately, right after you jump. Did you happen to see that momentum boost right as soon as you used your double jump? And just like that, you can now do maxed boost rollout jumps. Now let's watch it one more time just for clarity. This rollout jump can be pushed even further, reaching even farther distances than normal. Just take a look at what I did to make it go further. Adding the hover into the mix allows it to reach insane distances. Now let's go and break this down. So the first thing you're going to learn about this trick is that you cannot hold forward when hovering. This is what happens when you do that. So now just release forward as soon as you jump and start mashing hover. Now you can see how much further this actually sends you. From here is going to be your normal jump, just like before. Then when you reach about this height, you want to release the stick and start mashing hover. And just like that, you can do the rollout hover jumps. And as a little side note, you can also use your hover and your dash in the air right after doing all this momentum. Also, just in case if you're new here, when you hit max speed in the wheel formation, you notice all those little white lines on the edges of your screen. Once you see that, you're officially in max speed. Now let's show you in the first level how it can be used during your run. This is one of the easier tricks in the game. It's quick and easy to learn, and it's fun to do. Be sure to practice where you can use it, because there's a lot of areas that you can skip in a game such as this. So there is a little trick that I did not talk about in my previous video. This one took me a while to figure out and asking some other people some questions about it. But it turns out that your hover can be increased in distance. So normally you will hold down your hover button and you just wait for the duration to fall out. But the community has found that if you tap the hover button as fast as you can, you actually get extra distance. Here is an example of the hover being used just holding it normally. Take a mental note at how far Beebs went with a normal hover jump. Now we'll take a look at the hover with the trick applied to it. Did you see how much further I was able to make it? Even with my mediocre mashing skills, you can make it much farther. Now let's take a look at her bird dash. The dash gives you a small horizontal boost in speed, and it can also be cancelled into a jump afterwards. Something new that was added to the bird dash is that it can be used 3 times consecutively on the ground. This triple dash can also be cancelled into a jump, and then to a hover, and then to another dash. Something that's not all too useful, but is fun with the dash is dash jumping while on the ground and then air dashing right after. It's a semi-okay way of getting around in the game, but honestly this is one of my favorite things to do in terms of movement. But the bird dash, in my opinion, has one of the coolest mechanics in the game. Using it on the ledge while buffering a jump will give you a huge boost of momentum, like so. Now let's watch that again, but this time I'm gonna slow it down and let you dissect what's happening. Are you a little lost? It's a very high possibility that you are, so let's go back and do it step by step, shall we? So first, when you activate the dash, notice how you slide right afterwards. The key to activating this technique is that slide. Once that slide happens, you have to jump, and once it's chained all together, you do a dash jump. Now to get the ledge boost, you have to dash, hold your jump button, press it again in mid-air, and then you'll shoot off. Also, one alternative that you can do if you have trouble with precise button inputs, you can mash the button, but you have to be careful because if you're not, you might use your triple jump. Now let us look at this sequence one more time, but this time in slow motion. Here you activate your dash. When you see this ball form, start holding your jump button. Then when you see the side flip, you can release the jump button and start using any other technique that you need, the hover, the dash, anything. It's a simple trick in theory, but it's all timing, so be sure to practice this. So a common problem can happen when doing this trick when you're too close to the edge. Before we get into this, let's take a look at what happens when you're too close. Now I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking that I just didn't press the button. But no, I was actually mashing the button to the timing that I would normally do it. For some reason, after using the dash too close to the ledge, the game realizes that you're not airborne. So the game isn't going to activate the side flip normally. The best way I could find to getting this consistent is by using a specific rhythm. I recommend that you put this down on your list to practice later on because it is awfully difficult doing this one. Now with all the bird dash techniques explained, let's take a look at it being used in one of the levels, shall we? So by this point, you might have noticed that her jump seems a little bit floaty, right? Well, luckily for you, this game actually has a fast fall for your jumps. To do this, all you have to do is use your hover, but don't actually do the hovering part of it. Right when you start to hover, you immediately fall down, which can allow you to activate other things such as your dash and such like that. So take a look here at the jumps being used normally. At this point, the speed seems pretty alright, right? But now let's take a look at this movement being used with the fast fall. Notice how much faster it is. And just like that, you move so much faster doing this. Alright, you made it to the end. Next we're gonna go over the final technique, and probably one of the most important ones in the game. The last technique I'm going to explain is essentially an infinite vertical climbing with the wheel. So go ahead and take a look at what happens without using this technique first. As you can see, this jump is just a little bit too big for Beebs, so she just dies. First, we're gonna break this down and explain how you actually do this. So when you wall jump, and when you activate the wheel towards the wall with momentum, you'll notice that you get thrown back. If there's another wall that's behind you, you'll actually go into your wall jump state and wall jump off of that one, giving you most of your jumps back, and you can do the wheel again. Now with that semi-explained, let's take a look at it being used properly. Now I made the trick look a little bit easier than it normally is, but there is some downsides to it. Some things don't always work out the way you want it to. One thing that can happen to a lot of new people learning this trick is that when you do it too close to the wall, you won't get the bounce and you'll just fall straight down and probably die in the water. Once this happens, there's pretty much no way of saving you. You can't cancel the wheel like normally in the air unless it touches something, so you're probably just going to die. And that's everything tech-wise that this game has to offer. So let's go back and review everything that we learned so far today. And just like any skill, all things must be practiced. Here's a list of things that I recommend that you practice before you start doing runs. First, let's take a look at the rollout jump momentum. Remember to release holding forward with the stick so that you can get the maximum distance traveled when using the rollout jump. Next, we have the rollout hover. This trick is insanely helpful for covering extremely large distances at a fast speed. To gain max speed, it has to be used right after using the rollout jump. But remember to be careful, because once you activate the hover, the only other option you have is to jump boost. Now let's take a look at hover mashing. This trick is pretty self-explanatory. To lengthen the distance of your hover, you just have to mash the button as fast as you can. The bird dash jump. Use the bird dash jump to cover short distances right in front of you that you need for jumps or anything along that sort. As for the bird dash ledge jump boost, you need to take into account the distance at which you're at the ledge and how you're pressing the button after you've already done the dash. This is definitely one of the harder tricks, so be sure to go and practice this one and spend a good amount of time doing this one. Fast falls. This one is a very simple trick. When you're doing your basic, 3D platforming, just use your hover to fall down faster so that you touch the ground faster. That way you can get back up in the air even faster. And lastly, the wall jump bounce. This one is probably one of the more important ones because it allows you to skip entire sections of the game. Use the rollout with a combination of your hover to reset the momentum that you have to get back to the wall to continue jumping off of it. And there you have it. That's a review of the movement in Demon Turf Neon Splash. Now if you're interested in speedrunning this game, I recommend that you go down to the description of this YouTube video and look at the Discord channel for Demon Turf Neon Splash. Also, if you made it this far and you like the content that I've provided, be sure to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. I appreciate you watching this video, and I hope it helps you in your speedrun endeavors with this game. But before I go, remember to always have a great day.
Take 'em out one at a time, like Rocky. I'm still young, got plans, got goals. It's my world, Demon Queen rule, take control. Yeah, I heard about them, but they'll know about me. Capital B to the double E, Z to the E. The head honcho, I make 'em buck like a Bronco. My time to shine, you'll be out of here pronto. Oh, you're so scary and you're so intimidating. These are your last moments, tick tick. I'm just waiting. Don't care about your crew.